Lord shall cause his glorious voice to be heard, and you shall have a song in the night. Come to the mountain of the Lord. Come see his glory and his might. He's the mighty one of Israel, the mighty one of Israel. His voice shall be heard in the power of his word, the mighty one of Israel. The Lord shall cause his glorious voice to be heard, and you shall have a song in the night. Come to the mountain of the Lord, see his glory and his might. He's the mighty one of Israel, the mighty one of Israel. His voice shall be heard.
Hello and welcome to this edition of The Sound of the Shofar. Today we have a very special guest today. His name is Bob Griffin, a prophet who has a word from the Lord. And I want to give you just one very important word from God before we begin. It's from Amos chapter 3, verses 6 to 8. It says, "If a trumpet or a shofar is blown in a city, will not the people be afraid? If there is calamity in a city, will not the Lord have done it? Surely the Lord does nothing unless he reveals his secrets to his servants, the prophets." God has a word today. There's a sound going forth today. It will go forth. So I pray today that you have ears to hear what the Spirit is saying. So Bob, I just turn it over to you, and you're free to just speak as the Lord leads.
Well, you know, as we were gathering together and talking a little bit, we began talking about September 11th because we've got this great book out that actually tells the vision. We've got a book called Standing in the Shadows of 9/11, The Vision. And of course, in this book, I talk in here in detail about how God began giving me dreams and visions about calamities before they happened. And one of the interesting things that God gave us is that in 1994, in fact in April 19th, 1994, 1 year to the day before the Oklahoma City bombing, I had, as it were, a dream that awakened me and continued throughout the whole night. And in this dream, I was on the side of what appeared to be Niagara Falls, and I was looking at myself in a boat with my pastor and also my best friend Tom. And Tom and I were in the boat. I was in the front. He was behind us. And as this boat was about to go over what looked like Niagara Falls, it was a white boat with a big red cross on it. And as the boat went over, I remember my stomach just kind of like really feeling the free fall of that, you know. And we went down and we hit the water. And on our way down, I could see dead and lifeless bodies floating, some up, some down, some on the shore, but all over, spread everywhere. And I remember thinking when we hit the water, what are we doing here? And a voice said, looking for dead and lifeless bodies. And so we began to look for dead and lifeless bodies, which would become a call in my life to find bodies of Christ that were dead and lifeless, to bring life to them. But in the midst of all this, we did find an individual who had debris in his mouth. We cleaned out the debris. I breathed life into him, and he came back to life. And the dream was over, and I got up and prayed all night. And when I was praying, the Lord said, you'll become part of an actual physical rescue mission with the Red Cross. And so, not knowing what that meant, we recorded it, and it was set. And then a year later, on April 19th, 1995, I was visiting a friend of mine. We arrived there on April 18th, 95, to clean off a tent. We were getting ready to do some evangelism and go into the parks and minister to the crack cocaine addicts and the dealers and so forth. And in the midst of that, I gave a very profound prophetic word. You know, power of life and death is in our mouth. And I gave a profound prophetic word to a young man who was coming out of a mobile home. And he motioned to us with some gang signs, you know, and I motioned to him to come over to the car, and he came over thinking that we were going to be buying some cocaine from him. But when he got there, I prophesied to him and said, your grandmother's prayed for you, your aunt has prayed for you, your mother's prayed for you. You just got out of jail where you had an experience with Jesus, but now you're on the street ignoring that call. But now the cry of these parents is calling out. And God is saying, today is your last chance to change. And we would find out the next day that that man was shot 17 times that night. He was a crack cocaine addict and a dealer. And he was now selling to the kids. And the cry of that neighborhood parents and grandmothers and aunts against him had risen up And the Lord allowed him to be taken away so that a generation could be saved. And I groaned and grieved finding out that information. In fact, I think we found out late that night. But I awakened on April 19th, 1995 to find out, Michael, that we had come across a threshold in America. I wouldn't know until later on in the day. I woke up about 9:03, 9:04 in the morning and woke up angry and crying, with tears coming down my face, and I began looking around and I thought, you know, why am I angry? What's going on? I prayed for a few minutes, got out of bed, and we went to clean off this tent that we'd pulled out the day before. And it was a big red and white striped tent with a big red cross on the top of it. And as we were cleaning this off with Clorox to get rid of the debris and the algae and the molds, things that grow on tents when they're put away, you know, we cleaned it all off. And then about 4 o'clock that afternoon, we visited a man's house. And when we got there, he said, "Did you hear about the bombing?" And I said, "What bombing?" And he said, "In Oklahoma City." And I said, "I haven't even heard that there was a bombing." I said, "Where was it?" My heart stopped because my parents lived in Edmond, Oklahoma. Wow. My dad worked in Guthrie, about 35 miles north of Oklahoma City, and my mom worked in the Federal Building. He said, "Well, the Federal Building." And my heart sank, and I said, "Which one?" Quickly trying to think in my mind, well, there's a federal courthouse, there's a federal building, yes, you know. He said, "Well, both, I think." And so we watched the news. We turned on the news immediately, and I began to watch it. You know, I wasn't watching television, didn't know what was going on, hadn't had time for the radio. We're just going about our business. And that afternoon, my wife at a Chinese restaurant, she said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "A storm has hit America." And she said, "Well, is it physical or is it spiritual?" And I said, "Both." And it was right then that the storm was hitting Oklahoma City and quenching the smoke and the fire. And that storm came in, it rolled in on that Tuesday. It still went Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. And we began to just pray and intercede. We couldn't get through the telephone lines. You know, everything was jammed, chaos everywhere. And finally I thought, you know, I'm going to call my dad. And I got on my knees and I called out to God. And immediately the hand of the Lord showed me that he had reached down from heaven and scooped up my mom and brought her to him, put her down at his feet, and I saw her with her arms up praying. And suddenly I saw the Lord saying no, and I realized that she wasn't coming back. And so I just resolved to get in the car. We drove to Oklahoma City in a thrashing rainstorm, and I'd had a prophetic word 2 weeks before that said, get ready, just get ready. You're going to go to the nations. Your testimony is going to go to the nations of the world. And it was at that time, I had no passport at that time, it was at that time that a man walked up to me from England and said, "Look, I'd like to do an interview. I heard your mom's in there and you're a minister." And I said yes. And so within a few minutes of doing that interview that night, we went around the world. We went to McNeil, Lear Report.